On YouTube, coming back at least for recording, second time recording tonight for the Hook'em Horns show and from hook'emheadlines.com. My name is Andrew Miller. With me is Shane Black. We are here recapping Texas's huge men's hoops win tonight over number 2 ranked Gonzaga. They get their win 93-74. Still feels weird for me to say that. But this is a feeling like you haven't really gotten with the men, at least. So, I've been covering Texas men's hoops now since the 17-18 season. So not a ton of time. I know there's a lot of people that have been covering it a lot longer, but yeah, this is the biggest win I've seen. Just in terms of what it'll mean for the program, where the program's currently at. So anyway, Shane, yeah, let's get some of your thoughts on it.
Yeah. Shout out to the fans and everyone that packed the Moody Center, the student section, the corral, the students waiting outside all day. Probably the first time people have lined up for a Texas basketball game at Oklahoma College game day against Trae Young game, but it's been a while. So just to have that whole atmosphere around the program is awesome to see. And then the team back all that up on the court. We can get to what we were talking about in our preview of the game, but Texas came out with a lot of emotion, fiery, and backed by the crowd to see some of those offensive goals that we alluded to in the preview didn't really happen. A lot of good shot making from the Longhorns, and they really kept on the gas the whole. There's points in the second half, even when the lead ballooned to 20 points. I was just waiting. A couple threes, it drew Timmy and one, and this is a single-digit game. But when it would cut it to even 16, big play was made, whether it be from Tyrese Hunter, who was the player of the game, or Cunningham, guys off the bench. It was just a real team win, which is good to see. The most optimistic thing about it is Texas played really well, but it wasn't like a perfect game from the Longhorns. If you think coming into it, Texas beats Gonzaga by 19 points, you would think Texas had to shoot 60% from three, get all the breaks, play a perfect style of basketball. That really didn't happen. Timmy Allen only 1 for 5 from the field, 2 points. So I think they're certainly like a little bit of room for improvement, which is kind of crazy to say, but yeah, awesome win. And hopefully Texas uses this to boost them through the rest of their non-conference schedule.
Absolutely. This is what happens, though, when you take care of the basketball and you play the type of defense that Texas did. Looking back at the numbers, I can see it. Like, looking back at the numbers and then thinking on that for a little bit, I can see how Texas was out rebounded by Gonzaga. But I was a little surprised looking at that when I first saw it. But Texas still shoots almost 40% from three, and it was the volume of attempts that were getting 13 threes. It's not often that we talk about any Texas team making 13 threes in a game. Not a ton of free throws, but efficient enough from the free throw line, 12 to 16. Steals and turnovers were definitely a story of the game for Texas because a lot of the other stat lines were pretty similar. I say that the ball movement in this game was really good as well. I am very impressed by what I saw from Marcus Carr and Tyrese Hunter both. Texas finishes up the game with 17 assists, which bested Gonzaga. Was 7 more than Gonzaga had, and that is actually very surprising to me. Marcus Carr finishes up the game 7 assists. For a guy that's supposed to be an off-ball player, it's pretty impressive. Granted, some of those coming on like those awesome Dylan Mitchell alley-oops there at the end.
Yeah, you alluded to it. Turnover differential was huge. Gonzaga turned the ball over 20 times, 10. Chris Beard has the goal of keeping, their offense double digits. 10 is not bad against the number 2 team in the country. And I think early Gonzaga was a little bit bothered by the crowd, and that played into some of the turnovers. And then just I go back to it, every single possession, this defense was getting after Gonzaga. Very few lapses where, Timmy got an easy bucket. And if you, put in possession after, eventually you're going to be forcing those turnovers. You're going to tire the other team out. And Texas was picking up right when Gonzaga crossed half court, a lot of high pressure on the ball handlers, which we talked about in the preview. Gonzaga doesn't have that Josh Perkins. They don't have the Jalen Suggs, the Andrew Nemhard. They really lack a true primary ball handler, and you could see that tonight. Tyrese Hunter, Marcus Carr, Jabari Rice, really getting after the ball handlers of Gonzaga hard to get that. And we saw Timmy score 37 against Texas. Just 18 for him tonight, just in quotation marks, because 18 is a good performance in a collegiate game. I think that the crazy thing was he was 7 of 10 for the field. If you would have told me Drew Timme was going to shoot 70% from the field, I would have guessed he would have had another 37-point performance. I think limiting him to 10 shots says a lot about the game that Chris Beard implemented coming into this, which was we are going to team Timme anytime he gets 1 foot in the paint. Arterio Morris had a great double team, I believe, early in the second half. That was a really big momentum booster. But I thought the defense stuck to the game plan. It was the ball out of Timmy's hands right when they needed to. Not too early to where he could find open shooters, but right when he was getting a foot in the paint, there was always 2 or 3 guys there. Big, but yeah, like you said, those turnovers really played the major role because Texas ended up taking 15 more shots than Gonzaga. And in a game where the percentages were very similar, those 15 shots went a long way and, leading the Horns to a 19-point victory.
Yeah, I mean, I'm stating the obvious here when I say that, it's a little bit concerning for Gonzaga moving forward that, Drew Timme has 18 points on 7 of 10 shooting from the field and you lose by 19. He's their best player, and if he's putting up production like that and they're losing games, they need to find other sources of offense. But more to the Texas side, a huge difference maker in this game was the play of the defensive front court. Brock Cunningham was awesome down the stretch there in the first half. That blew me away the way he was playing on and off ball defense, just sticking to Timme like glue. He was the most unwanted glove for Drew Timme ever. And
he was affecting it, that's for sure. Undersized a little bit. That's just what Brock does, which is awesome.
Yeah, and Dessou was pretty good in this game. I think having him in this one was pretty big because he didn't play against Gonzaga last season. And so Christian Bishop was a lot better, too, than he was against the Zags last year. Ironically enough, and I'll link it below because I did my studs and duds piece already. The dud in this game for me was quite clearly Timmy Allen. He just slow offensive night. He's been a slow starter in the past, and I wrote about this, where he's had a couple Novembers where he got off to averaging 8 points per game, 9 points per game, and he's in that ballpark again. But it was disappointing to see him come up with 2 points, 1 of 5 shooting from the field, 0 of 2 from free throw line, 3 turnovers. I don't really know what's wrong. It looks like he's a little bit miscast in his role. Maybe that's just it.
Yeah, it is interesting to watch because if you look at the roster construction with the guards who, float around the perimeter in Hunter, Carr, Rice, and Arterio Morris, and then it seems like Texas is playing a lot of 4 out, 1 in, Dessou or Cunningham or Bishop, that guy kind of floating the short. Timmy's he doesn't really stretch you from deep. So at that point, you're going to have 2 guys kind of floating around the paint. It seems like it's getting a little crowded in there. There's also just a couple shots, mid-range jumpers that he missed. And because Hunter and Carr were on fire, the offense really didn't have to go through Timmy and let him work out of that slump. So I think it was a little bit of both. But I think Timmy Allen's is going to be really important for player for this team. Ceiling. He had a game like this in the round of 32 matchup against Purdue, and you saw ultimately Texas fall to Purdue, even though Andrew Jones and Marcus Carr had really good games. So when it comes to Big 12 play and come March, Chris Beard and this team is going to need the best version of Timmy. I think it just might take the non-conference to find exactly what the role is, because I don't think there's any reason to stretch him out more than he needs to. I don't want to see Timmy Allen forcing threes. I think there's a way to involve him in the offense where you get him the ball 16 feet out on the wing and let him go to work. But yeah, definitely a disappointing performance in, what was otherwise a really, really successful night for the Longhorns.
Yeah, and we can talk. I'll talk more about this in follow-up pieces, but I'm always thinking after the first 3 games that maybe we think about bringing Timmy Allen off the bench.
I would disagree. I don't think that's the best idea. I understand getting Jabari Rice starting lineup. I do like that idea, but I don't know, man. I think if this problem persists with Timmy Allen, say through early conference play, and it's mid-January, and he still really hasn't found a semblance of his offense, that might make a little more sense. But I wouldn't be too for the decision on that. I think he'll be able to work his way through it, but yeah, that's just my feelings on that.
The one thing I have noticed, I don't mean to be a pessimist here, that that's exactly what I'm being. I'll own it. The thing I'm noticing through the first 3 games is that until Dylan Mitchell expands his game, that it's going to become a little too crowded in that front court in the paint. I love Dylan Mitchell. I mean, 9 rebounds, tied a game high, season high. He was awesome. But he's not a threat from 3 right now. He's not really even a threat from the mid-range. And so, anything that Allen could be getting closer to the rim is taken up by Dessou or Bishop, whoever he's on the floor with in the front court, and then Mitchell, who is, I don't know who's technically playing the minutes on the wing right now, but kind of a 4 big man or a 3 big man lineup. So
yeah. I was going to say, it is weird. It is when you think about that, the starting 5, you have, Dessou he showed tonight he can knock down a 3-point shot, but you essentially have 3 pseudo, quote unquote big men who work better inside the paint. Whereas your best lineup might be with 4 guards on the floor. So it is interesting you bring up that point, and it does look a little crowded at times. I think, and guys like Dessou down the 3, we talked about this in the preview, really need him to keep shooting that shot, and it'll eventually go down. We saw it tonight. He worked his way through it, nailed 2 of 4 3-point shots. That'll start opening up lanes. But I agree that's an interesting point you make. I don't know how compatible Allen and Mitchell are playing together. So that's something we'll definitely have to monitor going forward.
Yeah, I might be wrong on that. No, that was Bishop that was on the floor with Mitchell and out. Yeah, I think you're gonna have to take away that 2-man combination of Allen and Mitchell for a little bit, unless you want one of them playing minutes at the 5. So then just go small ball. Anyway, okay. So there was one more positive I wanted to give in this game, and that was just generically the play of the bench. The bench scoring was huge in this one. Let me see. I think it was in the ballpark of 25 points.
29.
29, yeah. And, what we got? 16. 29 to 16 bench scoring against Gonzaga. I know that Gonzaga is not the deepest version of themselves that they've been in the last few years. Actually, maybe the shallowest rotation I've seen from them in a while. But, either way, outscoring them 29-16 outscoring any good team 29-16 off the bench is going to get you wins. And that's what I'm talking about. Whatever bench combinations you go with, you got some dudes in this rotation, and if they're going 9 or 10 deep, I feel good about that. I feel good about the personnel. And there's different ways you can combine, because there's a lot of different guys that can fill different roles, but that mostly have a lot of experience. And I think you're going to be willing to maybe sacrifice some offensive touches or some extra minutes, whatever that be, for the greater good of the team. The rotation is solid, top to bottom. But
yeah, and I like the way that Texas was able to generate offense off of the turnovers in transition. They scored 27 points off of the 20 Gonzaga turnovers, which was the most points off turnovers Gonzaga had given up since 2017. So, like, that high ball pressure is going to allow you to get out and run. And tonight the threes were falling. Texas, I think they still only shot 39% from three, but I mean, they shoot 39% from three every game, they're going to be one of the tops in the nation and nearly impossible to beat. But my point is that if the threes aren't falling, they still have other ways to manufacture offense in running the floor. There's a lot of nice two-man game, pick and roll action. You saw towards the end, Dylan Mitchell, running the baseline, finding him on lobs. So, yeah, I thought that was definitely a big positive. And you might look at it and say, oh, Tyrese Hunter and Marcus Carr, they were 12 for 17 from three. How sustainable is that? Obviously not very sustainable. But if you look down the chart, Arterio Morris 0 for 5 from deep. We saw him have a 4 for 6 game from three against Arkansas, so he has it in the chamber. Jabari Rice just 1 for 3 from deep. So while the two lead guards did have a tremendous game shooting the basketball, even if they're not always like that, there are other guys who didn't shoot the ball that well that are going to be able to pick it up. So I certainly do think there are going to be a couple of stretches against teams like Baylor that can really get out and guard you, where this Texas offense will go stagnant. There was just a little bit too much reliance on the three ball and jump shots tonight against Gonzaga. But for the most part, I think those first 2-game qualms that we had and questions, I guess, about how well this team could shoot the ball were kind of put to rest. And I really don't want to overreact to this game, just like I didn't try to overreact to the first 2 games. Texas is going to find themselves somewhere in the middle of, shooting 19% in the first 2 games from three and 39% from this game in three. And if they can settle at that 35% range, this team is going to be really hard to beat, because any Chris Beard team that scores 80 plus points, you're going to be hard pressed to score more than them.
That is true. Yeah, let's see here. This is the last thing I wanted to talk about, because I had mentioned it in my bold predictions. Actually, some of my bold predictions ended up being pretty good. I had that Drew Timmy's point total was going to be cut in half from the last one, and that Tyrese Hunter was going to score at least 20, and both those happened. So
boom.
I'll take that.
Directly leads to the win right there. Those two things.
Yes, they do. One of the other ones, though, was that Texas would play at its fastest pace all season, and I think that easily came to fruition. But
yeah, I don't have Bartorvik numbers right in front of me, but I couldn't imagine that. I mean, I think not only did they play the fastest they've played all season, this might be the most up and down game that you see the Longhorns play. We talk about Chris Beard saying he wants to push the pace, and they certainly did in this game, but until I see it on a consistent basis, it's a more I'm going to believe it once I see it type thing.
Yeah, and they do have the tendency to, when they start pushing the pace, they have the tendency to over-rely on ISO once they get back into the settled half court. It feels like it kind of gets them out of rhythm a little bit when it comes to just set plays, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
I don't think I was doing a good job of describing that, but yeah,
I mean, it seems like it's almost like you push the pace, like the crowd's kind of on their feet, making noise. Then they pull it out, and then it's like Marcus Carr, Tyrese has the ball, and they're like, all right, my time to shine, which is, the immaturities in their game, which they do have a few, and it's important to note that those are there because they're going to show up. I think it's important to remember Texas is not going to win every game they play this season, so there are going to be struggles, and a lot of those struggles are going to stem from the two guys in the backcourt that led the way tonight. So while this win was awesome, I think it's important to take a step back and not anoint Texas as the best team in the nation, the national champion right now.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, yeah, okay. I'm not going to do the pace calculation right now, but it really, I mean, that if it was, so Texas, if you're looking for the pace calculation, Texas essentially played 48 possessions in this game. But then, I mean, Gonzaga, you figure you would double that, or 48 possessions per 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, so you probably double that. That is there's some you would have to subtract out, given how much Gonzaga was turning the ball over. But
it looks like, I mean, on Bartorvik, it can be a little funky, like right when the game ends. But they have 74 offensive possessions for Texas against Gonzaga. I don't know if that sounds right.
If you double, I mean, that pace would be insane. But
yeah.
It is by far the highest pace that Texas has played at this season, I do believe. And so, I mean, you just look at the score though and tell that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I do find it interesting that with Texas playing more up tempo basketball, if that's something that can stand, or like if they try to slow it down again against Creighton. But
yeah, I mean, I hope not, because we've seen what this team can do up tempo, and it really, Chris Beard, one of the main flaws of him as a coach has been half court offense, and if you can avoid that, I did think there was good off ball movement today in the half court, but if you can avoid half court offense as much as possible, especially with the athletes on this team, I think that's all for the better.
Yeah, that is true. I'll kind of I wanted to use that as kind of a segue here too. Are there any finishing or final thoughts that you have on this game?
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, we mentioned it briefly, but I thought Dylan Disu had a big game, showing that he can stretch the floor. He looks very comfortable catching the ball from 14 feet, facing, knocking down that shot, as well as backing down using the footwork. He had a nice up and under against the double team. So I thought he was a big difference maker. And if he keeps growing in this role, he's going to be a very, very important piece for this team come March.
Yeah, he was a good defender in this game, shot the three ball well, showed some nice moves down low. Really versatile. And yeah, I love what he can be at the 5.
Exactly,
so,
yeah. Perfect today's college game, sorry.
Yeah, for sure. So if I'm looking at the upcoming schedule here, it does kind of hit a lull for a little bit because we got the Leon Black Classic coming up, Northern Arizona and UTRGV. It's not actually until December 1st that we get the Big East, Big 12, or Big 12, Big East battle. But I mean, that's still just a couple of weeks away that we get another top 10 battle. Well, I say another top 12 battle at the Moody Center. Creighton right now is number 9. Texas bound to move up into the top 10 after this.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, well, and then we have Illinois on December 6th, another top 25 opponent. That one at MSG. I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on what's next for the team, or if you're adjusting your expectations for the non-con after this.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You mentioned the two upcoming games against Northern Arizona, UT Rio, Grand Valley. They're both outside the Ken Palm top 250. These are games Texas is going to be favored by nearly 30 points in, and are going to play probably pretty similar to the Houston Christian game. Not really towards the UTEP game, which is a little more competitive. But at the beginning of the season, we looked at it, and it was Gonzaga, Creighton, Illinois, Tennessee, and Stanford. Those were the 5 games that Texas could potentially slip up. And I think we were hoping for 3-2, or hoping for 4-1, predicting more 3-2. And clearly Gonzaga was the game that Texas was going to drop if it was going to be any of them. I really do think Creighton's a good team. I haven't gotten eyes on them this season, but just from what they bring back, Ryan Nemhard, Trey Alexander, Ryan Kalkbrenner, who is another big man. He's bigger than Drew Timme, but he plays with the same skill down low. So I assume Texas is going to have the same mindset of once he gets a foot in the paint, doubling. That's going to be a very interesting battle. And I think Creighton could give Texas some trouble. But, other than that, I like them to beat Illinois. I think they should clean up Stanford pretty easily. And then, of course, the Tennessee game, which comes in late January. You never know how the teams are going to be looking by then. But hopefully, as Big 12 play approaches, this team has no more than one loss now that they beat Gonzaga. If they go and lose to Creighton and Illinois back-to-back in early December, I think that's a major step back from what we just saw this evening.
Yeah, that is true. And if Texas can't finish the non-con on a strong footing, then yeah, that's going to be a little bit of a concern heading into Big 12 play, just from a inconsistency standpoint. But a quick snapshot. Creighton, yes, like you said, they are a team that kind of works from the inside out, if you will. They very much like to dominate the inside. Ryan Kalkbrenner, what is he averaging? Some 18 points per game already this season. He's huge. Isn't he like 6'11", 7 foot?
Yeah, he's a tough guy to move. So, and that he combines skill with it. So that's going to be a really tough guy to defend. College basketball is littered with elite big men this season. So anytime you turn on the TV, there's going to be, a big man who's dominating. But he's certainly one of the best.
Yeah, and because Creighton's next big game is actually against Texas Tech.
Okay.
On Monday. I think that one's on Monday. And then Illinois plays UCLA, I believe, on Friday. So you got some games coming up that could, if you're a college hoops fan, they're probably worth a watch to see what Texas will be facing in 2 of their best remaining non-conference opponents. But yeah, I feel good, obviously, about where the team goes from here. I won't lie. I would hope, I wish there was a more competitive game coming up. It's riding high from this.
Yeah, it's the era of the Chris Beard scheduling. He goes for a couple really big games, and the rest just kind of lullabies. But if Texas can win every big game like this, then I'll take it. I will certainly take it.
Yeah, it is true. But yeah, I think that's about all I got for hoops for tonight. Man, I am pooped.
Yeah, night, definitely a long night.
Yeah, to some degree, I feel like a Kansas fan today. It's like stupid football weighing me down from all this basketball coverage.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I see people tweeting, basketball school. It's a cool notion, and we both love hoops. But yeah, there's still a football game on Saturday that is going to be a pretty big one when it comes to the trajectory of this program, and really, you already talked about that on your other show, but yeah, it's interesting when the two sports are going at it at the same time.
Yeah, And basketball stealing its shine thanks to
Yeah.
last weekend for football. But we'll get your prediction for that for the stat predictions on Saturday so that we can still get them in as a unit. But that's all I really got for today. Also wanted to keep this a little bit shorter so that we can get this up effectively tonight.
Yep.
At some point. Probably looking at a 1 a.m. upload at this point. But yeah, anyway, finishing thoughts in general, or?
No, I mean, great win. Great to see the fan support come out. And yeah, like we mentioned, ride this high. Next 2 games should be pretty easy wins, and then it's Creighton, Illinois, and you never know. Teams undefeated after those games could be sitting as a top 3-4 team in the country. So get ready for a great season of Texas basketball.
I am certainly excited for it. It's nice to have something this early in the season to get people pumped up. It hopefully will be a fun season from here on out. But anyway, for Andrew Miller, Shane Black over at hook'emheadlines.com. We'll link up some of the coverage we've been doing in the description below. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Hook 'em.